The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
One of the Pharisees, a scholar of the law, tested Jesus by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated. It's a pleasure, by the way, to hear a little child in this church, so we enjoy hearing it. What an exciting day for Adam and Christina, and also for all of your family and friends who are here gathered to share this great event with you. And I'm sure I speak for Father Tim when I say that I also feel very blessed to be excited to be here sharing this event with you. I know that I felt blessed to have spent the last 7 months with these two, 7 months or so. We met about once a month. We talked about a variety of topics to prepare them not for today, but really for the rest of their lives. And now here you are in front of all of us, ready to begin the rest of your life together in the sacrament of marriage. But what is marriage? At least from a Christian perspective. What does the love look like in marriage? I'd like to help explain that with the use of the readings today. So I want to use two of the readings to talk a little bit about that, but also the Holy Eucharist. So let me begin at the beginning, which is from the first reading, from the beginning, from Genesis. We hear of the creation. It's a creation story. We hear God created man and woman, and he created them in his image. The question is, what image is that? We don't look like God, at least I don't think we do. But we know that God is love, and everything that God creates, he does out of love. So that's the image that we're created in, love. So since we're created out of love, we're made to give love and receive love from one another. So Adam and Christina, throughout your marriage, always look at each other as a child of God, as God's creation, meant to receive love but also to give it. The second point comes from the Gospel, but also from the second reading. But in the Gospel, we're given a commandment to love one another, meaning it's not an option. So if we want to be considered a disciple of Christ, we need to love one another, not just once in a while, but always. If we always want to be considered a disciple of Christ, if we want to be considered one of his followers. So in marriage, you're asked to love each other always, whether you're tired or hungry, overworked, overstressed, always love each other. That's a difficult thing, but how do we love each other? Well, that example is in the Eucharist. So the Holy Eucharist is first described in the Gospels, all 4 Gospels. But there's 2 different explanations of the Eucharist. In the first 3 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we hear of the first explanation that most of us are familiar with. And that is the institution of the Eucharist, where Christ explains the Eucharist and gives them his body and blood at the Last Supper. We learn the next day, of course, that's himself that he's giving us. And each time we gather together at the Mass,